looking everywhere, that's how the story goes. Grab your gear.
Welcome back to the Zombie Story Zone. Today, we're taking you to one of the most remote and unforgiving places on Earth, the Arctic. Imagine being trapped in a frozen wasteland surrounded by ice and snow with no way out. Now imagine that the dead are rising around you, hungry and relentless. This is the chilling story of a research team fighting to survive not only the brutal cold, but also an unstoppable zombie outbreak in the heart of the Arctic. As the storm rages outside their isolated base, the team discovers that the infection they're facing is unlike any other. A parasite ancient and deadly, buried deep beneath the glacier for centuries. It reanimates the dead, turning them into fast, intelligent monsters that learn and adapt. With communications down and rescue impossible, the survivors must face their worst fears and each other, as the infection spreads closer and closer. Will they escape the Arctic nightmare? Or will they become frozen corpses, just another part of the glacier's dark secret? Stay tuned as we dive deep into the zombie apocalypse in the Arctic. A tale of horror, suspense, and survival that will chill you to the bone.
Flight will unite as the horror unfolds in the zombie story zone. Adventure never goes on. Welcome to...
At the edge of the world where daylight fades for months and the cold can kill in minutes, silence rules the Arctic. It's not just the snow or the wind that makes it quiet, it's the weight of isolation, of being completely forgotten by the rest of the world. That's where we were, Outpost Polaris, an international research station buried under layers of snow and ice, closer to the North Pole than to any living soul. We weren't prepared for what we found. It began like any other day. We drilled deeper into the ancient glacier, hoping to unlock secrets from Earth's distant past. But instead of frozen microbes or prehistoric air, we pulled up something else. A body. Blackened, twisted, perfectly preserved. We thought it was a scientific miracle. We were wrong. That body was the beginning of the end. Now, the snow isn't the only thing falling. My team is dead. Or worse, undead. The storm outside howls like a warning, but it's too late. Something ancient woke up beneath the ice, and it wants to spread. If you find this recording, burn everything. Don't come looking for survivors. There are none. Only the frozen dead. The Awakening. Oscar wouldn't stop growling. He paced the hallway outside the lab, his sharp claws clicking against the steel floor, ears pinned back, body tense. The hairs on his neck stood straight as if the air itself had changed. Inside the living quarters, Emily sat hunched over Raj's notes. His preliminary results were troubling. Cells from the corpse showed signs of metabolic activity, despite being over 30,000 years old. Impossible. Life doesn't persist after that long, not in those conditions. Unless it wasn't exactly alive to begin with. The base lights flickered once, then again. Emily looked up just as the entire station jolted with a dull metallic thud. The siren blared, shrill and urgent. A red warning light pulsed above the door. Lab breach. She bolted out of her quarters and met Hank and Mike in the corridor, both armed and alert. "What the hell happened?" Hank. "No clue," Emily replied, breath visible in the chilled air. Raj was working late. They burst into the lab. The containment glass was shattered inward, as if something inside had broken out. Blood smeared the counters and walls in wide, frantic strokes. Chairs were overturned, papers scattered. Raj lay crumpled beneath the counter. His throat had been torn open, deep, savage, no clean cut. His face was frozen in horror. His body was already going cold. Emily gasped and stumbled back. Mike aimed his rifle at the darkness beyond the lab. Then came the sound, a low, wet groan. From the far side of the room, something staggered into view. Tall, gaunt, half-naked. The corpse. No, not a corpse anymore. Its skin was blackened like charcoal, its limbs cracked and stiff, but it moved, each step jerky and unnatural. Its eyes were sunken, glowing faintly with a sickly, dead light, and its mouth stretched wide, revealing needle-like teeth. "My God," Emily breathed. "Move!" Hank shouted. The thing lunged. Mike fired once. A headshot. The creature snapped back but kept coming. "Shoot the brain!" Hank shouted again. 3 more rounds. One struck the base of the skull. The thing dropped, twitching violently before going still. The silence that followed was absolute. Emily looked at the body, shaking. We didn't find it. It found us. By morning, Raj's body had vanished. The room where they had left him was empty. No blood trail, no drag marks. just an eerie stillness that felt out of place even in the Arctic's dead calm. It was as if the cold had swallowed him whole. "Bodies don't just disappear," Jody said, gripping her thermal mug with white knuckles. "We're not dealing with a body," Hank replied grimly, checking his rifle. "Not anymore." Oscar sniffed the floor where Raj had fallen, then growled, head turning toward the main entrance. There, barely visible through the frost-covered window, were footprints. Bare, human-shaped, trailing off into the blizzard. "No suit, no boots," Emily whispered. "No one could survive that cold." "But it's out there," Mike muttered. "Moving like it doesn't care about the cold, like it doesn't feel pain or death." In the lab, Lena ran new scans on the melted ice core samples. The results were worse than anyone had imagined. "This isn't a virus," she said. "Not exactly. It's older, hungrier, it infects dead cells, reanimates them. Not like traditional pathogens. It controls." Emily flipped through Raj's journal, now smeared with dried blood. His final notes were frantic. "Not just a parasite. It thinks. It adapts. It waits." Outside, the wind howled louder. A storm front was rolling in, visibility near zero, temperatures dropping by the hour. They were trapped. "We need to contact the mainland," Jody said, rushing to the radio tower, but the signal was already down. Static hissed from the speakers like a mocking whisper. Oscar barked suddenly, fur bristling. Something was moving under the snow. It brushed past the outer wall. They all went still, hearts pounding. "This place isn't a research station anymore," Hank said, locking the door. "It's a tomb." Emily's voice was low, barely audible over the wind. "No, it's a hunting ground." Night fell fast, like a curtain pulled over the world. Snow whipped against the base windows, blinding and furious. The temperature had dropped to -45°C. The Arctic didn't just kill, it erased. And then Mike didn't return from patrol. He'd taken a full thermal suit, a radio, and his sidearm. He was the most experienced outdoorsman among them. If he was gone, it wasn't the storm that took him. Jody clutched the radio, her voice cracking with static as she called over and over. "Mike, come in. Do you read?" No reply. Then, just past 3 a.m., the silence broke. His voice crackled through the radio, low, strained, like it had been pulled from somewhere deep underground. "I'm so cold." They traced the signal. It was coming from beneath them, from the glacier shaft. "Suit up," Hank ordered. Emily, Hank, Ethan, and Jody descended into the ice tunnels, narrow, claustrophobic, carved with care into ancient blue walls that glistened like frozen glass. Their flashlights cast long shadows. Then came the sound. Wet chewing! They turned the corner. There, hunched beside a half-frozen seal carcass, was Mike. Or what used to be Mike. His helmet was missing. His skin was black with frostbite, cracked like a porcelain mask. His eyes were black pits. He didn't speak. He just ate, chunks of raw meat staining his lips. "Mike?" Jody whispered. He looked up, blinked slowly, then shrieked and charged. Ethan froze. Mike moved in a blur, fast, too fast. Hank fired once. The bullet struck his shoulder. Nothing. Headshot. Mike's skull shattered against the ice wall, spraying black blood across the frozen tunnel. Silence returned, but it felt thicker now, like the air had grown heavier. Back in the lab, Emily reviewed Lena's test results. This infection, it doesn't just reanimate tissue, it accelerates it. It's learning, getting faster, stronger. "We need to get out of here," Ethan said, wiping blood from his face. "This place is a death trap." Emily shook her head. "We can't leave, not unless we're sure none of us are infected." Hank holstered his gun, jaw clenched. "Then we start testing everyone, one by one." No one moved. Oscar growled, because deep down they already knew. Someone was next. They lined up in the common room, Emily, Hank, Jody, Ethan, Lena, and the dog, Oscar, pacing between them like a guard who trusted no one. The room was too quiet, save for the wind groaning beyond the steel walls, like the world itself was grieving. Lena set up the portable blood analyzer. It beeped softly with each test, scanning for cellular abnormalities, the signs Raj had described before he died. Emily went first. "Clear." Then Ethan. "Clear." Jody. "Clear." Then Lena. The machine hesitated. The light blinked yellow. "Run it again," she said quickly, hands trembling. "These machines freeze up sometimes." Emily watched her closely. The second test blinked yellow again. "No fever, no discoloration. I feel fine," Lena argued, her voice rising. "It's a false positive." "Then why is your nose bleeding?" Ethan whispered. They all turned. A thin line of blood trickled from Lena's left nostril. I didn't notice, she began, but Oscar lunged, snarling, teeth bared. Hank grabbed the dog by the collar, barely holding him back. He knows. Lena backed toward the wall, her voice cracking. I'm not one of them. I swear. Check me again. But her eyes, they were beginning to gloss, darkening like oil slicks. Her breath came in short gasps, visible in the cold air, but they weren't steady. They were twitchy. Wrong. Then she dropped to her knees, convulsing. Her spine arched sharply, bones cracked beneath her skin. Get back! Hank shouted, pulling his sidearm. Lena's scream turned into a guttural snarl. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide, her jaw unhinging, tearing at the corners as a thick black fluid poured from her throat. Ethan didn't wait. He struck first, smashing the fire axe into her chest. She shrieked, swiping at him with claws that were once her hands. Hank put a bullet through her eye. She collapsed in a twitching heap, her body steaming on the cold floor. No one spoke. Finally, Jody whispered, it was already inside. Emily looked around at the pale, shaking faces of what was left of their team. The ice didn't trap the infection, she said, voice hollow. It preserved it, protected it, and we've just set it free. Outside, something howled. Not wind, not human. Something else was awake. The storm raged with fury now. Whiteout conditions swallowing the world beyond the outpost. Ice crusted over the windows, thick as bone. Every few minutes, the steel walls groaned under the pressure, as if the entire base were sinking into the frozen earth. Jody sat by the comms unit, fiddling with the dials for the 100th time. Still nothing. Just static. Layered with faint whispers that might have been wind, or something worse. We're completely cut off, she said, not looking up. Satellites are out, no signal from the mainland. We're talking radio silence. Ethan paced behind her, hands shoved into his jacket, eyes flicking toward every sound. They should have sent a check-in team by now. No one's coming, Emily said quietly. She stood near the lab window, staring at the blood smeared across the hallway floor, the spot where Lena had fallen. They think we're safe. They don't know what we've unleashed. Hank grunted. He was reinforcing the doors with metal bars and scavenged furniture. We're not waiting for help. We hold this place, or we die in pieces. Oscar barked once, sharp and urgent, from the far hallway. His ears were up, eyes locked. Someone's outside, Jody whispered. But that wasn't possible. Not in this cold. Not without gear. Hank raised his rifle and approached the side hatch window. Slowly, he wiped away the frost with his glove. A figure stood just beyond the outer lights. Barefoot, bare-chested, skin black and cracked like burnt leather. Its eyes gleamed like polished coal. Behind it, 2 more emerged from the snow, then 5, then 10. Dozens. They're not hiding anymore, Emily said, her voice hollow. They're waiting for night to fall. Ethan stepped back from the window, face pale. Then what? She looked at him, eyes dark with truth. Then they'll come for us. The first breach came just after midnight. It started with a distant clanging, soft at first, like something tapping on the outer walls. Then came the deep, metallic groan of pressure on the emergency hatch. They're testing the doors, Hank muttered, gun ready. Like they remember how to open them. They do remember, Emily said, loading a fresh clip into her pistol. They're not mindless. They're evolving. The lights flickered. The emergency backup hummed to life, casting a sickly yellow glow across the walls. Shadows twitched unnaturally. Jody screamed from the surveillance room. They're inside the generator tunnel. The team rushed to the back corridor. The steel hatch to the maintenance tunnel had been ripped open, from the outside. Frost spilled across the floor like fog. Blood smeared the walls. And at the far end of the tunnel, just beyond the red emergency light, something crawled toward them. It was fast. Too fast. Ethan fired first, 3 rounds into its chest. It kept coming. Oscar lunged at it, teeth sinking into the creature's leg. But the thing didn't flinch. It grabbed the dog and threw him against the wall. Oscar yelped, then lay still. No! Emily screamed, rushing to the dog's side. The creature leapt forward. Hank tackled it midair and slammed it to the ground. It shrieked, a horrible human-like screech that echoed through the base. Ethan drove a metal rod through its skull, finally pinning it. The creature twitched and went still. Seal that tunnel, Hank barked, panting, blood on his face. Now! They bolted the door shut, welding it for good measure. But the damage was done. They know our layout, Jody whispered. They knew where the weak spot was. They're not just trying to kill us. They're trying to wear us down. Emily sat next to Oscar, stroking his head gently. He was alive, but barely. "We're trapped," she said, eyes locked on the steel door. "They'll keep coming, and eventually, one of us will slip." Outside, the wind howled again, but this time it was joined by dozens of hollow voices, echoing from the ice. As if the Arctic itself had started to speak, sleep was no longer an option. Every creak of the metal floor, every gust of wind outside, sounded like footsteps, like claws. Ethan sat at the edge of the common room, shotgun across his lap, eyes bloodshot. Jody huddled near the generator with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, muttering softly to herself. No one had eaten in hours. Oscar lay beside Emily, his breathing shallow. She'd wrapped him in a thermal blanket and fed him water from a cap. His eyes blinked slowly. He was hanging on. "How's he doing?" Hank asked quietly. "He's fighting," Emily whispered, stroking Oscar's ear. "We all are." In the lab, she ran another analysis on the infected creature's tissue, this one more disturbing than the last. The cells weren't just reanimating dead flesh, they were rewriting it, reshaping it, merging human and unknown ancient DNA. The infection was intelligent, strategic. It didn't want to kill them immediately. It wanted them to break. "It's learning through us," Emily said aloud, voice trembling. "Every scream, every drop of blood, it's studying us." A loud crack shook the floor. The ice, not from the storm above, but from beneath. "What the hell was that?" Ethan asked, standing up. Jody checked the thermal sensors. Her face went pale. "There's heat movement under the glacier. Multiple sources. Dozens, maybe more." "They're coming up through the ice," Hank muttered. The map lit up with shifting red blips. "There's a tunnel system below us," Emily said. "Old ice rivers, melted veins. That's how they're moving. That's why we couldn't find them in time." "Then they'll be inside by dawn," Ethan said. Emily nodded grimly. "We have hours. Maybe less." The base groaned again, this time from the center. "They're not just beneath us anymore," Hank said, locking his weapon. "They're here." The walls seemed to close in tighter with every passing hour. The remaining team, Emily, Hank, Ethan, and Jody, stood silently around the control panel, watching the blinking red dots inch closer on the map. Oscar whimpered softly, sensing the growing danger. "Emily, we need a plan," Hank said, voice rough. "We can't hold out forever." Emily nodded, but her mind raced elsewhere. Raj's old notes, the strange virus, the unnatural behavior of the infected, it all pointed to something deeper, something buried in the ice long before humans ever set foot here. "I think the infection isn't from the surface," she said slowly. "It came from below. The glacier is a tomb, but also a prison." Jody frowned. "A prison for what?" Emily swallowed hard. "Not just the infected, but whatever created them." A sudden, piercing alarm cut through the tension. The main door sensors flared red. "They're inside," Ethan whispered. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging them into darkness. The emergency generators flickered weakly. "Keep calm," Emily said. "Stick together." They moved as one through the dim corridors, flashlights slicing through the black. At the lab, Emily stopped cold. The blackened corpse, gone. Only the containment unit remained, cracked and empty. Then she saw it. Scratches on the floor, leading deeper into the tunnels beneath the base. "We've been chasing shadows," Emily said, voice shaking. "But the real nightmare is still out there." Hank grabbed her arm. "What do you mean?" "The infection wasn't an accident," she said. "It was created, engineered by something ancient, and it's still alive beneath the ice, waiting." Outside, the wind howled with a voice that sounded almost human, a low, haunting whisper. Emily closed her eyes. "We're not the hunters here. We're the prey." The tunnel beneath the base yawned before them, a jagged scar cutting through the ancient ice. A chill unlike any Arctic cold seeped from its depths, biting straight to the bone. "We have no choice," Emily said. "If that thing is still alive down there, we end this now." Hank tightened his grip on his rifle. Ethan checked his shotgun. Jody clutched her flare gun, eyes wide but determined. Oscar growled low, refusing to leave Emily's side. The four of them stepped carefully into the tunnel, their flashlights barely cutting through the thick darkness. The air grew heavier with every step, the smell of frozen earth and decay clinging to their clothes. Deeper in, strange shapes emerged, frozen bodies twisted in impossible positions, their skin cracked black and glassy like the infected they had fought. And everywhere, strange symbols were etched into the ice, ancient carvings glowing faintly blue in the cold light. Emily paused by a large frozen chamber. "This isn't natural," she whispered. "These carvings, they look like warnings." Suddenly, a voice echoed, a whisper beneath the ice. "Emily," she spun, heart hammering. The voice came again, clearer. "Help me." Ethan raised his shotgun. Hank aimed his rifle. Out of the shadows stepped Raj, or what looked like Raj. His skin was frostbitten and cracked, but his eyes held a faint spark of recognition. "Raj?" Emily whispered. "How?" He smiled sadly. "The infection, it's not just a curse, it's a prison." He explained slowly, voice echoing off the walls. "Thousands of years ago, an ancient being was trapped beneath this glacier. It's a parasite, an intelligent entity that consumes life, then reanimates it to do its bidding. The infection is its spawn, its army. Raj was the first to awaken it again when he found the ancient sample." Emily's mind raced. "So the infection, it's not alive by itself? It's controlled?" Raj nodded. "Yes, and now it's breaking free." "But why the warnings?" Jody asked. "Because some tried to stop it before. The ancient people who carved these symbols wanted to warn future generations to never disturb the glacier." A sudden rumble shook the ice. The tunnel trembled, shards of frozen crystal falling. "We don't have much time," Raj said, stepping back. "You have to destroy the source, the core of the infection. It's deeper in." With a grim nod, the team pressed on. At the heart of the glacier, they found it, a pulsating black mass, alive and writhing, feeding on the ice itself. It pulsed like a living heart, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Hank raised his rifle, firing. Bullets bounced off the mass like stones. Ethan unleashed shotgun blasts, but nothing stopped it. Emily scanned the chamber, spotting an old crate marked with radioactive symbols, left over from previous expeditions. "Explosives," she said. They rigged the crate to detonate, hoping to destroy the core. The seconds dragged as they sprinted back toward the tunnel entrance. The explosion ripped through the glacier, sending shockwaves that shook the entire base. Ice cracked and fell around them as the ancient parasite screamed, an unearthly sound that froze their blood. When the dust settled, silence. Outside, the storm had calmed. The first weak sunlight pierced the horizon. Oscar barked, wagging his tail weakly. Emily looked back at the glacier, now fractured and bleeding dark cracks. "We did it," she whispered. "It's over." But as they turned to leave, Emily caught a movement in the shattered ice. A small black seed pulsing faintly, untouched by the blast. The infection wasn't dead. It was waiting for the next thaw. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey through the frozen nightmare of the zombie apocalypse in the Arctic. Sometimes, the coldest places hide the darkest secrets, and the dead don't always stay buried. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new tale from the Zombie Story Zone. Stay safe out there, because you never know when the next outbreak will strike. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your heart strong. This is the Zombie Story Zone, where the undead are always just one story away. That's it for today's story, survivors. If you want more terrifying tales and undead adventures, make sure to subscribe and join our community of fearless zombie hunters. Drop a comment below. What would you do if you were trapped in the Arctic with the undead? Remember, the zombie apocalypse could happen anywhere, even in the coldest, most remote places. Stay vigilant, stay alive, and until next time, this is the Zombie Story Zone, where every story is a fight for survival. See you in the next nightmare.
In the shadows of the night, where the moonlight glows, the zombies lurking everywhere, that's how the story goes. Grab your gear.